Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of a Disney Life podcast. We are so happy to have you here, whether you are an old friend who's been following us for a bit now or a new friend joining for the first time. Thank you for being here, and we hope you'll continue on this journey with us. In today's episode, we're going to be doing a trip report on a recent trip that Rachel and I were on together, and we have a guest along with us today. Her name is Heidi, and she is one of our good friends that travels with us frequently with our different group outings that we do. So Heidi will be joining us to go over a trip report from a recent trip to Walt Disney World. We did a pre-trip report for this back in episode 3. So if you didn't hear that, you can catch up with that one at some point too and see how things played out compared to how we thought they were going to go. In today's episode, we have a listener question concerning when it's the best time to book your trip to Disney World. So Rachel and I will both be addressing that. Our top 5 will be our top 5 list of favorite snacks at Walt Disney World. And then Rachel has a tip for us concerning discounts, package and room only discounts at Disney World. So that will be a great tip. Hang into the end for that. So in today's trip report, we're talking about a recent trip to Walt Disney World Resort. This trip took place in July of 2025. Rachel and Heidi are both members of a group with me. We travel to Disney World pretty frequently, and we go on cruises and do all sorts of traveling together. And in this particular trip, we were all there at Disney World at the same time, but we didn't always do all of the same things. So in today's trip report, we'll be talking through day by day what we did, how our plans varied, and how things came through as compared to how we had originally planned them back in episode 3. So for my particular travel, I arrived on a Wednesday. It was a late arrival for me because we actually had my daughter's college orientation that day. So I was a bit stressed and very ready for vacation. We flew into Orlando International Airport, and I believe, Heidi, you arrived at around the same time as me, but a little bit earlier, if I remember correctly, right?
We landed about 11:45. I think my flight was a little delayed. And we were originally planning on arriving on Friday, and then we just kept saying, hey, let's add a day. Let's add a day. So we ended up bumping it to Wednesday night and actually landed pretty close to midnight.
So, so I don't think any of us would really recommend a super late arrival, but in this case, the late arrival was really an early start since we originally planned on starting this trip on a Friday, and that Disney Plus room discount offer came out was very tempting and allowed us to add more days to our stay at a really great rate. So it just made sense for us to adjust our flights and arrive late Wednesday. Normally, I'd say you'd want to arrive with enough time to enjoy something that day. But in our case, already had a head start. So I took a lift to the airport. From the airport to the hotel. That seems to be my most common means of transportation anymore. And I think back to the days before we had it, and I wonder how I survived down there without it. I don't know if I become more leisurely or more lazy or a combination of both, but I find myself relying far less on Disney transportation options than I ever used to imagine I would. How did you get to your resort, Heidi?
I met my roommate at the airport and we took a lift also. And we had
So
quite
you
an experience upon arrival. We made it there about 1:30, I think, and we got to our room. We had done online check-in, so we went straight to the room, and we had a king bed accessible room assigned to us. So we didn't particularly want to sleep in the same bed together. So we went back to the front desk and asked if there was any way they could accommodate us. And they very nicely looked and said they did not have any rooms with 2 beds at All Star Sports, which is where we were, but they would upgrade us to a preferred room at Pop Century. Then they asked if we had transportation there, and we said no. And they very nicely gave us a voucher and called a Mears Connect shuttle that took us to Pop Century. So we got to bed about 3:34 in the morning.
very, very late night for you. It was very kind of them to work with you on that. Of course, when you book some of these resort hotels, you don't have a guarantee always what your room type will be. There seem to be so few king bed options at the value resorts. It's kind of surprising that that's what was left for you. But again, they had no way of knowing that two adults traveling together weren't going to want to share a bed. So it would be nice if when you check in and you have the option during your online check-in to choose ground floor or near elevator, it would be nice if there was an option there to be able to request that you want separate beds as well, because that could have saved you a lot of time and
Yes.
frustration that night. So I actually started my trip and stayed the entire trip at Art of Animation. Back in episode 3, when we discussed this, my plan at that time was to stay at All Star Sports for 2 nights and then move to Art of Animation. We did keep that separate Art of Animation's 5 night stay beginning on Friday, and we booked a separate 2 night stay beginning on Wednesday. So I was fortunate enough to be able to stay in the same room the entire time. But I know, Heidi, you had some moving around to do. So when you woke up after your very little sleep, what happened then on on Thursday morning for you? What did that travel? What did that first day of your trip look like?
We slept in till about 9, and then we went to Pop Century Food Court. We had to pack up, took our things to Bell Services, then went to the food court and made it just in time to get the last 2 omelets as they were turning over for lunch at 11. Then we took a lift to our second of 4, I guess, resorts that we ended up in, to Old Key West. So we had one night at Old Key West, and we got there and lift. We took a lift again, and we ended up hanging out in the lobby. Our room wasn't ready, and we had requested ground floor because Old Key West does not have elevators. So we wanted to not have to haul our luggage up 2 flights of stairs. So we ended up
Mhm.
hanging out in the lobby, and we worked. Both of us worked on our laptops, and the lobby was gorgeous. They had Jimmy Buffett music in the background, and we ended up ordering some food from Gurgling Suitcase. We got some fried pickles, and I always wanted to try the conch fritters because you will hear that and I'm a Disney foodie. That's my thing. Everybody kind of has something that they love about Disney, and that's my thing is the food. So I got my conch fritters, and we hung out there. We were supposed to go to Animal Kingdom and meet Missy, but we didn't make it there. We
They didn't quite make it there. So
no.
it wasn't really much of a surprise to me, although my day didn't go quite as planned either. So I was traveling my first night with my 2 daughters and my oldest daughter's boyfriend, and they had anticipated and insisted they were going to be up for rope drop at Animal Kingdom. Now, if you're familiar with Disney park hours, you know Animal Kingdom opens pretty darn early. And we did not make it because we weren't in our room until after 1 o'clock in the morning. And I just said, let's not torture ourselves. We knew that there wasn't a whole ton that we wanted to accomplish in the park that day. And I was pretty confident that we'd be able to make it happen, even if we didn't rope drop, which fortunately we did. So we ended up staying in bed pretty late that morning also. And it was, again, nearly 11 a.m. when breakfast ended that we made it down there for breakfast. So I was able to start my day off right with some Mickey waffles. That's how I always prefer starting my first morning of vacation. And then we headed to Animal Kingdom. I believe we got there right around 11:35, 11:45 ish, and we headed right to Dinosaur because its days are limited. Countdown to extinction is a real thing now, and and we wanted to make sure to get a ride in on Dinosaur that day. I have never seen a line for Dinosaur like I saw that day. I think the first time I rode that ride was in 2001, and I could remember having to wait just outside the doors of the building. And then, of course, you have like your queue area you wind through in there. This time it was out the door down to the end of the building, and it wrapped around a pathway that I never even realized existed. So I don't know if I hit it at just the wrong time, or if I'm not the only one thinking let's get a ride in, or what the deal is. But that was a longer ride than a wait than I thought it would have been. It was posted at 45 minutes. It ended up being 30. So that wasn't too bad. But my word, it was hot. It was a hot, hot day. So we were sweating, and I was immediately to the point of it didn't matter what I looked like. It was like survival mode. So, and I say that in the nicest way. Um, just trying to just survive your Disney vacation. But I mean, the sweat was happening no matter what. So after that, we walked out a dinosaur. We could see the construction walls that are up in the area that is now closed down and is under construction. So we walked along that and headed over to Expedition Everest, which is a ride I don't always ride, but I was in the mood that day. So I did wait in the line. Again, I think it was probably about a 20-minute wait. My kids actually decided they kind of like not having Lightning Lane for that day because it allowed us to appreciate and take some time in the queue areas. So many of the queues at the Disney parks have elaborate things to see along the way, with dinosaur, with the Dino Institute cases of display, and all of the things that went into Expedition Everest. In that park in particular, I think the queues are pretty great. So they were happy to be able to have a bit of a wait there. But by the time I was done with Everest, I was shaken around enough that I thought to myself, why did I do that? And I don't know how much longer I'm going to make it in the park. So we took a look at the app and the wait times and could see that the safari had just a 10-minute wait. And that was the third of our 3 must-dos for that day. So we headed back there, and I don't think I've ever seen it actually show a 5-minute wait, but when we arrived at the ride, it did show a 5-minute wait. And of course, by the time we walked through that queue area, we immediately got on the ride. So we were excited to see a lot of animals out and about. I didn't know how it would be in the heat of the day, but we saw a lot of animals that day. And then that completed the 3 things we wanted to accomplish other than food there. So we did, my kids always need the cheeseburger pods over there in Pandora. So we went there and I had the grilled chicken and noodles. Have either of you ever had the grilled chicken and noodles there?
That's my
No, I have not
favorite.
had the grilled chicken and noodles. I usually go for the shrimp or beef.
Okay.
I
What
always
did you
go
say,
for
Heidi? I
the
didn't.
sorry, I always go for the grilled chicken bowl with the noodles and then the
Okay.
charred onion vinaigrette. Okay.
Okay, well, I'm a very plain eater, so I was very simply like, I don't want sauce or dressing or anything. I would just like the noodles and the grilled chicken, and I thought it was great. It was very similar to the type of thing you'd have over at Ohana. Not quite as good, but very similar. So I was happy with that. And then we had one more food goal in the park, which was the key lime pie dipped in chocolate on a stick. So we went over to Flame Tree Barbecue and got that. And that was quite delicious. I enjoyed it. While we were there, we saw one of the Cool Kids summer shows happening over there in that small stage area. It's at the end of the one store. There's like the store ends, and then there's a small stage and a restroom across from Flame Tree Barbecue. I don't recall if it has a name or not, but they there it was a somewhat interesting experience. There was a cast member singing and dancing. He was very enthusiastic. He did a great job. He was singing Cool Kids Summer to the tune of Hakuna Matata. So that was our first Cool Kids Summer experience of the trip. It seemed like there were some kids really enjoying it, and it was like, just a fun little pop-up type thing in the park. So that was pretty neat to see. We saw Kevin from Up wandering around the park, which is always a joy to see and a fun photo opportunity. And then we headed over to the Tree of Life to take a few customary photos before we headed to the bus back to the resort for an afternoon break. And I think by that time, Heidi had gotten her hotel room, and we were making plans to meet up for dinner that night.
Yes, we got our room was assigned around 3 p.m. So we went in and changed for dinner. And you're going to hear a lot of that from me rest and eat. So we were heading to Beaches and Cream. So to get there from OQS, we did the bus to Hollywood Studios and then the Skyliner to the International Gateway at Epcot and then walked to Beaches and Cream. So we were meeting more of the group for dinner there. And that was great fun. I mean, it's just always it's good to see everybody, and then the food is so good. I had the grilled cheese with bacon and loaded tater tots, which that's my tip. Get the loaded tater tots as your side. And then, of course, you have to end with ice cream, which for me is always the No Way Jose. with cookies and cream.
So Beaches and Cream Soda Shop is located at Disney's Beach Club Resort. Since I was at Art of Animation, it was a pretty easy trek for me because I just had to hop on the Skyliner and then transfer at the hub at Caribbean Beach to take the Epcot International Gateway uh, Skyliner line. So for me, that was pretty easy. It's not the easiest place to get to, but I do often recommend it to people if they don't want an option in World Showcase, which does occasionally happen, and they want to just take a break from the parks and kind of chill out somewhere. The Yacht and Beach Club resorts in the Boardwalk Resort are super easy to get to. From Epcot, like I had just mentioned, and also like Heidi said, she took the Skyliner over from the Hollywood Studios entrance. So we did end up having dinner and ice cream there. I had the French dip, which was good. I've had it before and it was equally as good as I remember it. And I also had a Noe Jose. And like Heidi mentioned, our group is a fan of getting the Noe Jose with the cookies and cream ice cream rather than I think it normally comes with vanilla and chocolate scoops of ice cream, but we like to switch it up a bit. And Beaches and Cream is excellent with doing that. While we were there at dinner, my kids asked, what day are we going to the cake bake shop? And I said, we're not going to the cake bake shop. And they said, well, why aren't we going to the cake bake shop? I'm like, well, I guess we can. Let me see where I can fit it in. So I took a look at our schedule and realized that the following day we'd have some time, but I thought, well, I don't know if I'll be able to get a reservation. So I hopped into the Open Table app and was lucky enough to be able to get reservations for the next evening. So that was a last minute change of plans that came about simply because we were in that area and the kids remembered the option existed. So that was an update compared to our original pre-trip report also. For us, once we finished our ice cream, we hopped back on the Skyliner and got back to the hotel right around 10 p.m. It had been a long, hot day, but the kids wanted to swim. So we headed out to the pool until it closed at 11 p.m. and then it was time for bed. So Heidi, did you venture out anywhere after your No Way Jose, or did you head back to the hotel for the night?
We did not. We had one of the members of the party is a local, and so he drove us back. But one good thing about the boardwalk area is you don't have to have a theme park ticket to go there. So I always think it's a great place to go on arrival day or departure day because there's so many options to eat, and it's beautiful at night. The lights at the Swan and Dolphin. So I always think boardwalk is a great way to either begin or end your vacation. But so no, we went back and we went straight to bed.
And I absolutely agree. I love the boardwalk area. It has a ton of food options. There are some entertainment options there as well. Uh, if you haven't been there before, it's really like a true boardwalk, like you'd see along the Jersey Shore or somewhere like that, where you may see a pop-up magician during the evening or somebody performing tricks or doing some type of show. I've even seen on rainy nights the magician pop into the lobby area of the boardwalk inn to entertain guests there while they take a little bit of a break from the rains. And I think that Skyliner having access to that area gives extreme value to all of the hotels located on the Skyliner. If I had to choose between Pop and Art of Animation and an all-star resort, if I wasn't looking for the absolute least expensive option, which the all-stars are almost always, I would every time pick one of the resorts on the Skyliner because I think it adds a value to your trip in that it opens more opportunities easier for you. So moving on to Friday, like I said, we did have a split stay, two separate reservations, and we kept it this way not because we had to, but because we really wanted to take advantage of the free water park day. So, as we've discussed here before, you could enter a water park, one of Disney's two water parks, for free on your arrival day. So, we did not get to do that on our first arrival day since we didn't make it there until almost the next day. And we decided we'd take advantage of that on Friday. I had actually woken up to a text that I received. It came through at 4:45 a.m. to let me know that my room was ready, which was a relief to me because that meant, okay, they know I have this continued stay. They know I'm staying in the same room. I had confirmed it with them on a previous stay at the front desk. And it's just so nice to not have to change rooms. So that is not a guaranteed thing. I know we've talked a few times here on this podcast about taking advantage of that water park benefit and splitting your stay, but don't take for granted that you'll be in your same room the entire time. Definitely talk to them at the front desk about that. So, again, we made it down to the uh, Landscape of Flavors food court there at Art of Animation just in time for breakfast to end. And I got myself my Mickey Waffle Kids meal, and we were ready to start the day. It was a little after noon, I think, by the time we made it to Blizzard Beach that day. We had a polar patio booked there. Rachel, have you ever experienced the polar patio there before?
I have not, but admittedly, I have only been to Typhoon Lagoon and only one time, but I do know what you are
Okay.
talking about.
Okay, so it seems like Disney tends to have these exclusive experiences at a lot of places. The most familiar one that comes to mind for me with a private cabana type experience is obviously Disney's private islands in the Bahamas at Castaway Key and Lookout Key. They have private cabanas you could rent there. So this is a similar experience, but not quite as fancy as what you'd have there. At some of our deluxe resorts at Disney World, at the Grand Floridian, I know, and the Polynesian, they have separate spaces that you could reserve at the pool area. So it's along those lines. They are available to book 60 days out. Further than that, if you are a Disney Resort guest and you're booking the 60 days from arrival to include your entire stay. So we did book this immediately. It was something that we knew we wanted to try. So we got it right at the 60-day mark. And there are not a whole lot of them. I think maybe 19 or 20-ish or so. So there's not a ton available. Our rate was almost $400. It was just under $400 for the day, but it does accommodate 10 guests. So we decided, since we weren't paying to get into the park, around $40 per person wasn't too bad of a deal. So we decided to go for it. You check in for that at one of the shops as soon as you go through the park entrance. Unfortunately, they did not have an attendant available to see us in when we first arrived. So we had to wait a few minutes. And after about 15 minutes, one of the cast members from the shop just said, "We're just going to take you over there ourselves and get you set up," so we didn't have to wait any longer. So that was very nice. And soon after we did arrive there, our attendant did come. She was super helpful, super sweet. She provided us with a cell phone number to text her at. So if at any time during the day we needed something, we can just text her and say, "Hey, can you come on over here to patio number 17?" And she would appear very quickly. So that was fantastic. We had a great experience with her. They were able to deliver food to us. They have a somewhat different menu there, the same type foods, but because you're in that group patio, they had some, I would call them more catering sized options. So we ordered chicken tenders, which was a platter of a bunch of chicken tenders. It was around $40, I think, for that. We ended up just getting 2 platters of tenders and fries for our group to all share. She was able to get us bar drinks, which was great. I tried the cold fashioned. I am an old fashioned kind of girl, so that's almost always my drink of choice. And at Blizzard Beach, they had a cold fashioned, which was a frozen version of the old fashioned. It was delightful. I quite enjoyed that. We were right next to the lazy river, so we could see people floating by, and it was also fun if I was in the lazy river to wave to our friends who were still in the patio at the time. So I wouldn't say this is a super value just for a traditional single family to rent for the day, but if you're traveling with more than one family or with a group of people like we were, it's an excellent experience. It came with a cooler of bottled water for us, which they would refill just with us requesting it at no additional cost. And we also got the refillable cups, one for each person. So since we had 10, they gave us 10 of those, and they ended up coming in handy for carrying ice back to our room at the hotel and other things during the stay. So Heidi did arrive. She made it there. I don't remember exactly what time you got there, Heidi, but what did you do once you got to Blizzard Beach?
Well, we moved to our last stay, or our last resort of the stay that morning. We moved to Art of Animation, so that's how we got the free water park admission. So we grabbed lunch at Art of Animation, and then we did take the bus. They do have a bus directly from Art of Animation to Blizzard Beach. I think there are only a few resorts that have a direct bus. for the summer. So when we arrived, we came and met you all. I think you all were still in the little cabana, and I was very pleased. The location was great. We were right next to the entry to the lazy river where I spent most of my afternoon floating on a raft. Um, I loved the refillable mug because we grabbed a drink on the way back and had a drink to ride back with. So it was nice. I mean, it would have been nice maybe to have a fan going over you, but it was nice not to have to fight for a chair, to worry about, especially with a large group, finding an area with enough space for all of us. So yeah, so I spent maybe 2.5 hours in the lazy river, I think, until I pruned up pretty well.
And it is a very large lazy river. If you're not familiar with Blizzard Beach Water Park, their lazy river runs around the outside of the entire park. So it's long, and I kind of find myself looking up to try to see where along my view is Summit Plummet, because I kind of used it as if like I were the hand on a clock, like going around Summit Plummet to know like, okay, we're almost back to 9 o'clock. Then we have to start watching for our cabana because it'll be time to get out, So it is a very enjoyable lazy river. I appreciated that not only did they have single tubes and double tubes, but they also had the type of tube that is like a C shape that just goes around you, and then you sit on the little part. So it's like a chair. I don't need to be trying to balance myself, throwing myself in and out of a chair or of a regular tube. And nobody there wants to see that either, unless for comic purposes, which is not very nice. So I love seeing the chairs. It was worth waiting a bit at the entrance to try to go ahead and score one of those, because they certainly did have more regular tubes and double tubes than they did the chair floats. But I thought the chair floats were a great option. I was happy to see them. We ended up leaving there at around 5:30, and we were able to take a bus directly back to Art of Animation. But it's worth mentioning for anybody considering visiting Blizzard Beach, they do not have direct buses from all Disney World resorts. For some of them, you will need to go to Animal Kingdom and then transfer to a bus for Blizzard Beach. So, as of right now, as well as I'm aware, the resorts that have a direct bus to Disney's Animal Kingdom are Wilderness Lodge, Caribbean Beach, Pop Century, Art of Animation, Coronado Springs, and then all three of the All-Star resorts. So those are the ones that will have a direct bus to and from Blizzard Beach. For all the others, you would need to transfer at Animal Kingdom. So I'm not saying it's inconvenient, but it's certainly a bonus to not have to ride one more cold bus in a bathing suit. Um, After that, we did go back to the hotel for a bit and we took a break. And then we got ready to head back over to the boardwalk area again for our dinner at the cake bake shop. So, Heidi, I know I'm trying to remember if we rode over there together. I think I took a minivan to get over there. And then we met there.
We left before you all and went. I was on a quest to get the prime rib sliders at the Cruise Cup Lounge at Yachtsman. So they had these years ago and they briefly went off the menu and they were back. So I was determined to get those. So we hustled, got ready, took the Skyliner over, walked down to Yacht Club, and had a very enjoyable. We had to go pretty quickly because we had a cake bake reservation, but we sat in the Cruise Cup Lounge, which is connected to Yachtsman, right outside Yachtsman Steakhouse. And we
Mhm.
had a little window next to us that actually looked into the room where they cut the steaks. And
Okay.
my
I know that
my
table. I've been seated there before. I know exactly where you mean there at
yeah,
Cruise Cup.
and they were very nicely, they made a zero proof cocktail for me. And then my roommate Jen asked if she could get the French onion soup from Yachtsman. And our server said, I have to ask the chef at Yachtsman. It's his option whether he will allow it or not. So they very kindly gave her the French onion soup. And then I had the prime rib sliders. And then it was just very nice atmosphere and great service. And then we hustled out and across the boardwalk to Cake Bake.
So when we arrived there at the Boardwalk Inn, where we were dropped off by our minivan, the sunset was absolutely beautiful that night, and we did have a few beautiful sunsets during this trip. But it was gorgeous enough that I made the kids stop, and we did a little bit of a photo shoot there around the lake because it was so pretty. And then we met you over at the cake bake shop for our late night suite.
Yeah.
I had the Earl's Court chocolate cake. I've had several of the cakes there. I've had a couple of the pies, but that chocolate cake just seems to be my favorite. And this time I complimented it with the Black Swan, which is the Cake Bake Shop's version of an espresso martini. And it was a great way to end the night.
Yeah,
What did you have there, Heidi?
I had second dinner, so I had the chicken velvet soup. I'm a hobbit, um, so the chicken velvet soup is kind of one of their specialties, and it's really really good, cream based, really good chicken that comes with a little baguette. So I had that, and then we had a pretty big group, so a couple of us shared a burrata platter, some fresh mozzarella and tomatoes. Then I shared a dessert. A peanut butter pie. And the one cool thing that they did for us is there were several people there, including some of Missy's party, that were celebrating birthdays. And then we had two, I think, celebrating graduations. And so the server came over and did this really cute presentation all about this dragon that's associated with the cake bake shop that comes in. And it ended with you got glitter, edible glitter in your hand, and then you blew it out with your candle. And so that was a really
Yes, it was
sweet,
spreading
cute.
the magic.
Yeah.
It was spreading magic or something like that. It was the glitter. It was very cute. Everybody got to make a wish. So that was a really sweet thing. And I can see how that location can be a very special spot for families for a celebration. So it's always somewhere I recommend. I know it's got a hefty price tag with their cake. I think their food and appetizers, the soups they have are all very reasonably priced. I think it kind of gets a bad rap on pricing because thinking, $22, $23 for a slice of cake is outrageous. Nobody needs to eat that full piece of cake themselves. You can share that cake and make it a much more reasonably priced dessert if you chose to. And it's one of those places that you're also paying for the experience. It's an absolutely gorgeous restaurant. The first time I was there was back in November of 2024, and at that time it was decorated for Christmas. The decorations this time of year were different, but equally as beautiful. It's just a really charming place. I don't know why I hadn't thought ahead of time to put it on the schedule, but I'm glad the kids encouraged us to do so and that we were able to get in there. And it was a pretty late night getting back because our reservation for Cake Bake was 8:45 p.m. It was a late night getting back to the hotel, but we were up bright and early the next morning because we actually did get out of bed at breakfast time. We skipped breakfast. We headed right to Hollywood Studios. We got on the Skyliner at around 7:50 a.m. and we were in Galaxy's Edge at Rise of the Resistance by 8:30 to be part of that early morning, the extra hours for resort guests heading right in there. So, Heidi, you were there also, right? You rode Rise of the Resistance first thing in the morning.
Yes, and I'm not a rope dropper. I'm more of a sashay in about 9 o'clock and then hopefully hopefully stay till the end. So yeah, I was up and we did do breakfast, made it to the Skyliner, got there and got on Rise, and it was a walk on, obviously at that point. And we had lightning lanes for that day, but we didn't do Rise with the lightning lane. We caught it at early entry so that we could get there before the crowds.
Right.
So, and
Right.
I'm not a thrill rider also, but I love Rise of the Resistance. And the first couple of times I rode it, the drop at the end, I was white knuckling it. And now
Woo, you're a wild woman.
I'm telling you
I
that tiny
love
little
that.
drop. And then
Rude.
after the ride, I think everybody headed over to the Tower of Terror, a rock and
No,
roller
we actually
coaster.
did. I think we went and did Runaway Railway first. So we had more, our
Okay, wait.
group was kind of congregating as we got into the park. As Heidi mentioned, we did not have the single pass for Rise, which is why we rope dropped that, but we did do multi pass for that day with Lightning Lane. So we had ahead of time, we had Tower of Terror, Rock and Roller Coaster, and Toy Story Mania were the ride reservations we had ahead of time. And we were done so quickly at Rise and met up with our last friend. Actually, we had a kind of a silly situation with that also because we had one person coming from a different hotel who was kind of a little behind, and a cast member noticed she was looking for us, and we hadn't heard to know that she was actually coming that early to make it on the ride with us. So everybody went ahead and rode without her. And this cast member was so kind because they offered to take our whole group again onto the ride so that we can all ride together. But at that point, we opted not to take that gracious offer because it was early early enough that we knew we could still make it to Runaway Railway before the lines got crazy. So we headed right to Runaway Railway. We rode that. And then we headed to Rock and Roller Coaster. Still, at this point of the day, it's about 9:15, 9:20 in the morning. It wasn't terribly crowded. And two of the kids went off and did Tower of Terror, while two of them did Rock and Roller Coaster, using some of our magic bands. And then we all grouped together and a bunch of us did Rock and Roller Coaster together. So that was a lot of fun. I think our only issue that day really was in trying to see the new villain show. So whenever there's something new at Disney, of course we want to see it, and of course everyone else does too. We kind of thought we could roll up like 2 or 3 minutes before it started and just head on into the theater. That was not the case. It ended up taking us 3 tries to finally see the villain show, and it was the last thing we did that afternoon before we left the park for a break. After our first failed attempt at seeing the show because the theater was at capacity, we went back to the ABC commissaries. Breakfast options at Hollywood Studios, if you're not at a table service, are not too excellent. You could get Mickey waffles out there at one of the outdoor options on Sunset Boulevard, but if you wanted to sit inside and be out of the heat, there was nothing opened at that point. So it was 10:30 in the morning. We ended up going and getting grilled cheese at the ABC commissary. I just got a grilled cheese kids meal to get something into my stomach after riding the rides that I rode. I kind of needed a little something because we hadn't had breakfast before we left. I seem to remember there used to be breakfast options there, but do you guys remember that? I thought just even a few years ago I got like sweet potato tots or something with the breakfast there, but there wasn't this time.
I don't know. Did they it seemed like they had breakfast when they used to do the early morning parties at Hollywood Studios? Maybe they offered a sit down breakfast there, I believe. I split off from the group after Mickey and Minnie's and went to get my breakfast tacos at Woody's Lunchbox. Now, I did have to sit outside in the heat, but um, I think at that point, yeah, that's when everybody was riding Rock and Roller Coaster, which I don't do. So then I came and met everybody up in ABC Commissary
Right.
for some air conditioning.
Right. There definitely are breakfast options in the park that aren't or that aren't table service, but the trick is getting out of the heat. Now, sometimes it's beautiful being outside. I could remember being down there with my family in January and we sat and had Mickey waffles on Sunset Boulevard. It was the same type situation that we got there for the early entry for Disney Resort guests. And we rode Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror before the park even opened to everyone else for the day. And in January, the weather was blissful outside. In July, it was not. And I do not like to eat outside and be hot. I love eating. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm sure that comes as a shock. But I like to be comfortable while I'm eating. So eating outside is not a favorite thing of mine at all. We did do rock and roll. So we did Rock and Roller Coaster. We took our break. Then some of the group went to Tower of Terror, and I think at that point we attempted the villain show for the second time and failed again. It's hard when you have a big group like this, and you just need to be forgiving and go with the flow. We weren't going to let it ruin anybody's day, but it was really starting to cause some meltdowns. I was feeling it getting close to the edge, thinking, all right, I'm ready to just get out of here. But we decided to go check Backlot Express, and we thought we can maybe sit in there and take a break. It was too crowded. There was not a single table inside. There were only tables outside. And we did originally have a dinner reservation scheduled for the 50s Primetime Cafe. So we did a quick search online and were able to see that we could move that reservation up by several hours and go right then and have lunch. So that was our salvation for the day. We headed over there, checked in for our reservation. We had a couple minutes to wait, so we went into the Tune In Lounge, which is a cute little lounge there. Always seems to be pretty busy, but the bartenders were quick and fast, friendly, and we got our beverages. And by the time we had them, our tables were ready, and we went in for lunch. And at that point, we met up with you again, Heidi, and you joined us for lunch as well.
Yes, and we'd also done the Little Mermaid, the newly reopened Little Mermaid show, and sadly,
Oh yeah.
I had a gentleman in front of me with a baseball cap that had a plush character about this tall on top of it, so I was unable to see much of the show, but it was very cute, and it was interesting trying to find out Ariel's mermaid legs and how they were working, or mermaid fin and how that worked. And it was great to get some air conditioning. Yeah. And
Yes.
Jen and I had actually gone to hide out from the heat in the Rock and Roller Coaster gift shop. There's a little waiting area in there for people that aren't riding. And we had
Mhm.
decided we're not going to make it to the dinner reservation at 5. And so we were trying to decide, are we going to eat here or go back and rest and go out to eat? And about that time, I think you texted that you were able to move the reservation up. So it was very hot that day. It was, and the sun was really strong. So,
It was. And at some point, somebody had asked me what the temperature was. Somebody back at home had asked me, and I thought, I didn't even look to see what the forecast said because you just know when you're in Central Florida in July, it's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, it may rain. That's just what I was going with. I wasn't going to bother myself with the forecast at all. But I did take a look when somebody asked, and it said the real feel was 114 degrees. And I thought,
Wow.
well, no wonder I'm so uncomfortable.
yes.
Uh,
And
so
I
we
was
did have
excited.
a
Oh, I was excited about 50s because that was a first for me. I try every trip, I try to hit at least one new restaurant, if not two. And sometimes in a group that's hard because everybody has their favorites. I mean, everybody wants to return places, and I do too. So, that was kind of my request, I think, was 50s because I'd never done that. And it was really cute, and the servers were great. I think they got one of the members up and had her imitate, do the I'm a little teapot because I think she didn't finish her vegetables. And they had a trivia game going between the tables, and that was a lot of fun. And the food was good, and it was air conditioned. So that was good.
Yeah, so I had ordered the sampler there, which came with like the pot roast, the meatloaf, and some fried chicken. So that was good. It definitely wouldn't have been my first choice of a meal to eat on a day that was that hot. I think if I was going by menus only, that probably wouldn't have been my first choice of where to eat, but it did work out great. We ended up having a grown-ups table and a kids table, which was pretty fun. So the kids in our group, when I say kids, I'm talking about kids that are 17 to 19, 16, 17, 19 years old. They're not little kids. So we're not sending little ones like Rachel's little ones off on their own for a server to deal with. But it was fun. Just the whole premise of the restaurant being back in the 50s and having your cousins and aunts and everyone take care of you, elbows off the table, that sort of thing. It was cute because to me, like I remember Sunday dinners at grandma's and there was always a kids table. So I kind of got a kick on just on that with the kids having their own table and the adults being separate. So it gave us adults a chance to chat and catch up and make some more plans for the rest of the week. And the kids had a great time playing a trivia game that our server had going with them. I don't want to give it away because I'm assuming it's something he does kind of regularly with families. They were actually playing against a family at another table. They weren't even against us. And my youngest daughter, Annie, did need to get up and sing I'm a Little Teapot because she did not clear her plate. So um, it was a fun lunch. It was a great break. It was a break that we needed. And at that point, I think we all ended up heading back to Art of Animation for a break for a couple hours because Phantasmic was not starting until 9:30 p.m. And it's been years since I saw Phantasmic. I hadn't seen it, the most recent version of it, because we tend to do the same thing in Hollywood studios. We get there early, we go hardcore, and then we burn out. So this day we said, all right, we're going back to take a break, but then we will come back tonight to see Phantasmic, which we did. And I'm excited that we did that. And I needed to stay up late that night anyway because my husband was on his way down. He wasn't able to join us for the full trip, or didn't want to join us for the full trip, but he ended up coming down late Saturday night. It was actually early Sunday morning at around 1 a.m. when he arrived. So that was another late night for me. Heidi, I don't think you went back for Phantasmic, right? What did you do that evening?
We did not. We
Just
went back to
relaxing
the
at the
room
hotel, I
and
think.
yeah, we rested. And then another member of the group that lives locally came over and we visited, and we were planning to go to Bar Riva and have dinner, but we just never made it out of the room. We decided to rest up for the remainder of the day. But we did make it to Bar
So
Riva the
now we're,
next day.
you know, you have to eventually, especially when you're so close with a Skyliner. That
Right.
makes it super convenient. So we're finally up to Sunday, which is when Rachel arrives. Thank goodness. All this time we were
Finally.
anticipating her arrival. So my kids slept in a bit that morning around 9:30. My husband was awake and said, let's go down there and get some coffee at the food court. So we went down and did that. And everybody was up and around at around 10:45. I think we headed over to Riviera and ordered their quick service breakfast. And again, made it just in time for breakfast to end. I got something that I don't remember seeing on the menu before. Maybe it's because I used to always get something different, so I didn't pay much attention. But they had a breakfast pizza this time that had it was eggs, sausage, and bacon with the Mornay sauce on it. And I thought it was really good. It was very good. Something different for breakfast. I steered away from my Mickey waffle for a little bit, but I did order a kids meal just to get one because I don't know. I guess it's like my way to start the day. There, it's my good luck trick is to start the day with a Mickey waffle. But I think we just missed you there, Heidi. So I think we went and had
Yes,
breakfast. I think you went and had lunch, right?
we did. Bar Riva has, it's the pool bar technically for the Riviera Resort, and it's open air, but it's table service, as in that you sit down and you're served by a server. So they have a new menu or some new menu items. So I really wanted to try those. So we got the new Riviera burger, which now has brie, caramelized onions, I think maybe some arugula, and then a truffle aioli maybe. So two of us had that, and then we shared some their seasonal arancini that they always have. I think this time it was a mushroom one. And then after dinner or after we finished our meal, I said, I've always wanted to try. They have a skillet cookie. They Riviera has a signature cookie that they make and sell, and so they have one that's cooked fresh in a little mini skillet with, I think it's pistachio gelato on top of. So we got one of those for the table, and that was excellent. It was really, really good. So that's we just kind of took a nice leisurely lunch and relaxed there. So we had a good meal and tried some new items.
Very good. So we had dinner reservations at Ohana at Disney's Polynesian Village Resort for that evening for our group. We had a few who needed to back out at the last minute for various reasons. We had started with a group of 24, it went down to a group of 16 pretty quickly. We had two tables of 8, so that was nice. Our reservation time was for I think 6:30 and it was almost 7:30 before we were all seated. But again, I think that's mostly due to the fact that we had said we would wait a little bit longer to have tables next to each other because it is a pretty large restaurant and they do have some of their larger tables spread throughout it. We didn't want to end up being totally separated from each other. So we waited that extra time to be able to have tables side by side, which was very nice. And it was good. I've definitely had Ohana when it was better, but I've also had Ohana when it was worse. So I will still put it in the improved category. Our beef was great. Our chicken was great. The shrimp is a great disappointment. I think I have not researched this, but if I had to bet, I'm quite certain they no longer grill it. It always used to be grilled out on the open fire. To me now, it tastes like it was boiled and it seems soggy and mushy. And then they coat the heck out of it with seasoning, which is just too overpowering and messy. So, you know, we used like when my kids were little, we used to have a joke with them saying Ohana means 20 pounds of shrimp because my husband would sit and eat so much shrimp. It was a heaping pile of peeled shrimp. And I said, well, maybe this is his fault. Maybe he ate so much that they couldn't afford to serve us good shrimp anymore. And in an effort to get people to not eat the shrimp, they make it not taste good because that's basically how it seemed to me. Otherwise, everything was great. Our the bread service to start with, the coconut bread was great. The noodles were fantastic as always, and I always enjoy the bread pudding with the ice cream. So I know over at your table, so Rachel showed up just in time for this meal, and their table was a little more wild than our table. We all ordered Coke and Sprite, and I turned and they've got a pile of pineapples on their table. They all were drinking the good drinks that night.
So our server, he was fantastic. He really was. He kept everything, made sure that we had everything that we needed. In fact, this is something that is not a guarantee. Again, we do have someone in our group who is a huge Coke Zero fan and asked if the restaurant carried Coke Zero, which they did not. And somebody else had said, "Oh, I wanted one too." Anyways, the person joked that she was going to flip the table and we all laughed about it. And then our server shows up with 2 bottles of Coke Zero, one for each of them. So he went and found some, completely unexpected. It was not asked to at all. It was very, very kind and generous of him. But yeah, we had a great time. Missy was with her kids. It was more, I guess, more of a family table. We were we were definitely the rowdier
We had
table.
family and friends' kids at our table for our
Yes.
party of 8, and the adult table. I was basically at the kids' table this time.
We also had someone that has a gluten allergy, and they did a great job. She got an individual skillet, I think, maybe some gluten-free bread, an option, and then they would mark anything that they brought for the table that was safe for her to eat as well. So that was very nice. And before we got to Ohana, my group of 3 had done a little mini monorail crawl. We started out, we drove over to the Polynesian and we put our name down for Trader Sam's, but it was a 3-hour wait at that point, and we were never called back. Then we moved on to the monorail and went to the Contemporary because we wanted to try some sweet treats there. So we ended up doing it was called a cookie dough croissant. That was actually it was a chocolate chip cookie inside a croissant. And then I had it was a cinnamon muffin with, it was like a cronut. It was as if I took a croissant and deep fried it and then put cinnamon sugar and then put chocolate ganache in the middle. How can you go wrong with that? So we pre-gamed Ohana, which was good because we didn't get in there until so late.
Yeah, that was a good thing. I think we must have snacked too. I don't remember exactly what we did, but I think we got something at the food court before we headed over there. I know at some point we bought a pizza and took it back to the room. I don't even remember what day that was, so it might have been that day. I'm not sure. But we had a great dinner and it was a fun time to be there with everybody. I always enjoy the vibe of the Polynesian. It's where we honeymoon, so it's always one of my favorites, and I really enjoyed having dinner there. That being said, I would love to hear that there's going to be a refurbishment to the Polynesian that includes the bathrooms near Ohana. It is nearly shameful to go in there and see those floors. I'm hesitant to say too much, but it is not. I even took a photo at one point because it looks so bad. I was like, I can't believe this is what the ladies' room looks like at Ohana with what you pay to stay at that resort or what you pay to eat that meal at Ohana. Like, please fix up the bathrooms. I don't. They don't even need to be fancy, but
And
like,
there are so few stalls right there, and you've got 2 restaurants. You have Ohana and you have Kona Cafe. Kona
uh-huh.
Cafe is one of my personal favorites, but you've got 2 restaurants with large capacity. You've got a lot of people going in and out of those restrooms. Plus, it's the Polynesian Resort anyways, and it's just crowded. So, yeah, it's really if you go to those restrooms, you're gonna have a wait because there's what 3, 4 stalls in there. It's very small.
I think there might be 6.
Okay.
I
Still
think
small
there's 6 in
for
that
2
one, and
for
then
serving
there,
2 restaurants and having a lobby that people do go and stop at. I understand if you're staying, at an All-Stars resort, all the bathrooms in the lobbies are pretty small, but All-Stars isn't necessarily a destination for travelers, while they're there as opposed to the Polynesian resort.
Well, Art of Animation has a giant bathroom by its lobby, and it's very clean, and it doesn't look like it's 45 years old. So
Yeah.
if we were having a contest by the best lobby bathroom, Art of Animation is going to beat the Polynesian anytime. And I'm hoping, I know we saw a ton of work last year with the DVC property, the Island Tower at the Polynesian. I have stayed there. Heidi has stayed there. Rachel, I don't think you were there with us
I
on
was
that trip.
not there.
It's a beautiful tower. The rooms are nice. But now it's time to give the Great Ceremonial House a little bit of love, I think. I never want to see it closed, but also I would like to see it improve. So I'm willing to give it up for some amount of time so that they can make some improvements to it. So after we finished dinner, we headed back to the hotel for the night to turn in because we had an early morning the next morning, which was the big focus of our whole trip. I think it's what this all kind of started around. We arrived at the Magic Kingdom by 7:30 in the morning. We took minivans there because we wanted to be guaranteed to be there by that time. A little trick if you're taking a minivan to the Magic Kingdom in the morning. As of right now, minivans cannot drop you off in the Magic Kingdom bus loop drop off until 7:30 a.m. So if you arrive before 7:30 a.m., they're going to have to take you somewhere else, most likely the Contemporary, to drop you off to walk there. Um, I've Rachel, was it your one of the vehicles needed to kind of sweet talk the driver a little bit? He stalled a bit to make it to 7:30. Was that either one of your cars or no?
So I think Heidi's that you guys did drive around. Ours just kind of drove slowly. He said we timed
Okay.
it pretty well, but by the time so the buses couldn't even get in either. By the time that we got there, we probably had to wait about 5 minutes at the turn-in point, but everybody else was too. So we got there, and then as soon as we got out, we turned around, and there you guys are. So that was fun too. Even though we were staying at a completely different resort, so that was just entirely coincidental. We just knew we had a certain time that we needed to.
Yeah, our bus
Uh,
driver somebody had mentioned the night before that they had been told in a minivan that if they couldn't drop you off at 7:30, they would drop you at the Contemporary and then you would walk. And so we told our driver that and he said, "Oh no, no." He said, I'll drive slow and then I will drive around." So we got there about 7:18. So he drove around the Contemporary parking lot and just talked to us, told us all about all the positions he had been in, and then pulled right up at 7:30. So that was nice.
so that's ideal then. Yeah. So don't think you're going to get to the Magic Kingdom in a minivan or with any other means of transportation before 7:30. So since that did seem to be like the main starting drop off time there, it was pretty crowded at the park entrance and at security. We did spend quite a bit of time there. I think we had, was it eight? I think we had 18. Was it 16 or 18 people in our, I don't remember how many we had. I think we had 18 of us during doing the tour that
Might have been
morning.
17. It was somewhere between there, but yeah, we
Yeah.
had a big group.
Yeah, I think we ended up with 17. You're right, Rachel. It was going to be 18. It ended up being 17. Um, so it was a big group of people all arriving at once. So two out of us were pulled by security to have their bags checked, and that took a long time.
Yeah.
If it was just a matter of getting through security, it wouldn't have been bad. But getting the bags checked took a very long time. So, and of course, we waited for everybody. So that morning we did the Keys to the Kingdom tour, which it was the second time I've done it, but I haven't done it since 2004. It's been a very long time. And my kids were very excited to do it. It's the reason my husband flew down to spend some time with us there so he could experience that with the kids. Had either of you done it before? Refresh my memory.
No, that's my first time.
No, my
First
first
time
time
for
as
you.
well.
So the tour started at Tony's Town Square Restaurant. That's where the check-in space is for it. We all received name tags with our names on them. Rachel got to receive a second one because her name was spelled wrong. They added a T
They
before
sure
Rachel,
did.
so now we called her Trachel. She got a new name on this trip. Um, they had a fun photo op there with the big key that you can hold. And everybody had a fun time getting photos taken with that. And then the tour started. So we don't want to give away too many spoilers on what the trip includes or the tour includes. But we did start at the end of Main Street. We talked a lot about, or we heard a lot from our tour guide, Kevin, who was a great guide for us. He talked about the history of the company, the history of the park, and how it all began. We walked all the way up Main Street and then we went backstage for a little bit near where the baby care center is, right, Rachel? That's where that was, where we exited
Yeah,
there for a little bit.
first time we went
First,
backstage, that's where we were close to that.
So we saw some of the Main Street vehicles back there, talked a little bit about parades. I'm not sure if this is the regular route or if it was updated for our particular time because they have all of the new Starlight parade floats over in the other one. The last time I did this, we went backstage over near where Tiana's Bayou Adventure is now. So where Splash Mountain had previously been, it's where the afternoon parade starts. That's the entrance we went out last time. And we were actually able to see parade floats housed back there. So I'm curious to find out, is this way that we did it now the normal way, or did we have a revamped way because they were trying to keep us from the construction and everything that was going on back there?
That was kind of my thought, because when other people in our group had done it before and had seen parade floats, and so I was kind of wondering, are they trying to keep this under wraps because you're not supposed to have your cell phone out, but your guide can't watch you all the time. So we were good, did not take any pictures
I
backstage
was going to say,
as we
excuse
were
me, did
asked
you have your
to.
phone out that I don't know about? Are there photos that I don't know of?
I have no photos. I have no photos. But so yeah, we were respectful of that rule, but it would be easy to snap a few photos. So I kind of think that they were trying to keep as many of the floats secret as possible. And maybe that'll change in the future. Maybe it won't. Maybe you don't get to see the floats anymore. But I was a little bit disappointed in that. Obviously, there was a lot of great information and great things to learn, but I was kind of hoping to see, even if it had just been the Festival of Fantasy parade floats, I would have loved
Exactly.
to see that.
Uh,
So this could have been a double giant fail for me then, because we scheduled this trip when we scheduled it thinking we were going to see the new nighttime light parade, and we missed that by a week. So if the reason we didn't get to go in that section for the Keys of the Kingdom tour was the same parade, that was just a massive fail for me if that's the case. Time will tell on that.
But it
and
was
one of the
still
thing
fun.
they,
It was still fun, very, informational. I think my
yeah,
favorite part was, then after that, did we go on the Jungle Cruise next?
Yep,
Was that the
we
very
went to
next one?
Jungle Cruise
Yeah.
next.
I think that was my favorite part, that our tour guide was our skipper. And so, yes, there were some jokes, but he talked a lot about the attraction itself. So if you have seen the Behind the Attraction series on Disney Plus, there was an episode about the Jungle Cruise, and it was kind of similar to that. It was like writing that episode.
and also when we checked in, they had us place our order for lunch because I'm going to talk about the food. Um,
Mhm.
which we had lunch at Columbia Harbor House, and so then when we went in there, it was ready and on the table. We had little name cards in front of our food, and they also gave us a bottle of water each to take for the tour, so that was nice. But I think
Right. So we
I was going to say, I think my favorite part was when he talked to us about Tinkerbell, and that was very
Hmm.
interesting. Um, so I'm not going to give any spoilers, but that was I always enjoy watching her fly at the um, end of the fireworks. So that was really cool.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So as Heidi mentioned, they did take our lunch orders. It's the pretty standard options from Columbia Harbor House for lunch. So they took our lunch orders when we checked in the morning, and then after we rode Jungle Cruise and toured through some more of the park, we arrived at Columbia Harbor House for lunch. It was a pretty early lunch. I think was it 10:30? I
Yeah, I
think it
think
was
it was
very early.
10:30.
Um,
It's pretty
which was
quiet
some
in the restaurant, which we were in a separate location, but it was pretty quiet in there.
It was very quiet. I don't even think the downstairs was actually open when we arrived there. They let us in a side door. We went upstairs. We had a nice quiet area. Everything that we had ordered was there and ready for us. There are bathrooms upstairs, so we were able to take a bathroom break while we were there. At first, I had been thinking 10:30 was so early for lunch, but I guess because we were up early and a little off schedule and we're walking around and it was hot, I was starving by the time we got there. I ate everything that they gave us. After that, we toured around Liberty Square for a bit and learned more about the history there. And then we were able to experience the Haunted Mansion together. We did get to go in a side backstage door for that. So that was exciting. And then we ventured over to Fantasyland and we entered. I don't want to say too much. I don't know how much we're supposed to say, but we did enter the Utilidors using an entrance from near Mickey's PhilharMagic. So we went down in the Fantasyland area of the park to the Utilidors, and we spent about an hour down there walking around a few different hallways, seeing some different things down there. It was pretty cool to see friends of certain characters and cast members in their costumes heading to various areas of the park. You could kind of tell based on what they were wearing, which land they were working in. So that was kind of neat. And again, we discussed more of the park history down there, and it was pretty fun. And we came back up out of the Utilidors backstage, kind of on the backside of Main Street, and ended up ending our tour right where we began it by Tony's Town Square restaurant. So it did take 5 hours. It was a long tour. It was a lot of walking. It was not very fast walking, but it was a lot on your feet. So I do recommend if you're going to do this tour, make sure you have comfortable shoes. Um, And you may want to steer against it if you're somebody who has any type of injury or something that you're not going to be able to be on your feet for a long period of time, because it was a lot of time on your feet, even if it wasn't necessarily all walking.
Yeah, I think for me, it was a lot of standing. I could have walked the 5 hours, no problem, but when I stand still for a long amount of time, that's when it kinda like, "Oh, my back hurts." Everything starts to hurt, especially when you're down in the Utilidors area. There's no place to sit where at all, so but it was fun. It was definitely fun seeing the friends of the characters, and I kinda wondered, were they rehearsing for the new parade, or were they having rehearsals for the Festival of Fantasy later in the afternoon? So obviously, we didn't ask them. We were very respectful of, them
Hmm.
being there, but I love that in the parks that something like this is built, which is massive and huge, but it really does keep the magic going. You will see, cast members that work at Haunted Mansion walking through Liberty Square, but you don't see them in Fantasyland, and they talked about that, and I know sometimes I have been at Universal before, and you will see their team members walking around that are in themed costumes just in random places. I remember going to a Starbucks one time and seeing so many team members in line at Starbucks, and I thought, this is kind of weird. Not that they shouldn't have coffee, but I just thought I couldn't imagine seeing this at Disney.
Right.
Um, I just thought that was a little bit unique. So I think Disney helps keep a lot of that magic going by having the Utilidors accessible for their cast members.
So once we finished the tour, I think most of our first thoughts were, where could we get inside and sit down? So we headed to everyone's favorite spot to do that, the Carousel of Progress. So we went right over to Tomorrowland and visited that attraction for a bit to be inside and cool down some. Gosh, we must have stopped somewhere for a snack. Oh, we went into the confectionery. I was going to say, I know I ate a cookie while we were in the Carousel of Progress, and I was so tired. I don't know where we got it. It was the confectionery. We took a stroll through the confectionery as soon as we finished the tour, and then we went to Carousel of Progress, and then we kind of split off a bit. Some of us got in line for Space Mountain, some did Tron. I think Space Mountain went down, so that was kind of a like come and go kind of thing. Those who were in line for that ended up getting lightning lanes to return to it later in the day because it went down a couple times during the day. But we all ultimately met up for a second lunch or very early dinner at around 3:30 at Diamond Horseshoe, which is somewhere I had never eaten before. Had either of you been there before?
Yes, we used to go frequently when they had live entertainment. They used to have a magician there, and it was very different. You ordered sandwiches and they had chips, but the bar area where the cast members were still working, that was the food service area. So you would go and get your food and go down and sit down at the table. But we always loved seeing the magician. It was a lot of fun. He was very funny and it was entertaining, and so we used to do that. But I had not been there probably at least 10 years, I would say.
I think the only time I was ever inside the building for anything was during one of the Mickey's Very Merry Christmas parties several years back. Woody and Jesse from Toy Story were in there for a dance party, and we walked in the door and they were doing Gangnam Style. And I said, "What on earth is this?" And we kind of turned around and went the other way. But it was a great meal. It is the same exact menu as just down the street there at Liberty Tree Tavern. And I absolutely love their ooey gooey dessert that they have there. So I was thrilled to be eating at Diamond Horseshoe. The main reason it made our list is because of the limited time 40% off for annual pass holders. It was available just at certain restaurants Mondays through Thursdays, certain dates this summer. When we saw that the offer was available during our trip dates, we looked to see what we could get that would qualify, and Diamond Horseshoe is what we settled on. So I think it was nice for everybody to gather and sit down and have another meal together before we kind of parted ways at the end of our Magic Kingdom day.
So
And
I'll
we
say
made
this
it.
about it.
Oh,
Have not been to Liberty Tree Tavern in a couple of years because it used to be sponsored by a frozen food company, and I thought their food tasted like frozen food. So I did not go. because I want better food. So I kind of, when we talked about doing this, it was like, okay, I'm going because I want to be with the group and it's a big discount and that's nice. And ended up eating a light lunch because I wanted to be hungry and I was hungry by that point. The food was really good. I remember the macaroni and cheese used to very much taste like frozen macaroni and cheese. It is not anymore. The food
Do you
tasted
know
very
that
fresh.
we used to go there because we wanted that same frozen macaroni and cheese?
That's so
So
funny.
it is so bizarre to me that I was like, the only thing they had there was the frozen mac and cheese, and that's what we'd go there for.
That's really funny. I am the mac and cheese person for my family gatherings, so
Okay.
I'm a little bit picky about it. And the dessert too. I remember they used to have some kind of a berry crumble.
Yeah. And I don't like berries. So
Well,
that makes me
it was
very excited
good,
for
but
this.
you could tell it tasted frozen, like, it tasted like a frozen dessert. So, um, that was just another thing that I couldn't justify spending that kind of money, but it was really good. Everything was really fresh. We asked for more mashed potatoes, and he just brought this giant plate of mashed potatoes, which then we tried to pass off on Missy and her family and their table to please help us eat. But, um
We had plenty of food because my husband mentioned he liked gravy, and we ended up for 8 of us. We had 6 gravy boats on our table full of gravy. I wasn't even eating the gravy. I was still too hot for a lot of the hearty home cooked food, but
Yeah.
it was kind of funny. You had all the potatoes, we had all the gravy.
We needed to combine, but, we missed a good afternoon storm, most of it at least. So it had been sprinkling when we were standing under the porch waiting for our tables to be called, and, then it really we could see a lot of lightning where we were, so we were happy to be where we were at that
Mhm.
time. I think we were all kind of hungry even at that moment too, even though we'd just eaten lunch. At that point, I guess it had been 5 hours before, so it makes sense. But we missed a good afternoon storm in there.
It was perfect timing.
Yeah.
And then I was soaked on the way back because my group went back to the resort after that. And so I bought a new frog tog poncho that's supposed to not stick to you. So I put that on and we walked down Main Street through the stores to kind of avoid as much of the rain as we could. And I started buying things. And so that was very inconvenient. You have to take off the poncho, get the backpack. But anyway, we went through there and then stopped at the confectionery and grabbed some snacks and then went back to the room to do a little rest and get some dry shoes on.
So after that, we headed towards Memento Mori, which is the gift shop outside of the Haunted Mansion, because they had some new items that just released this month there, and my daughter wanted to take a look at those. So we stopped there, took a break at the Rapunzel restrooms, which many of you may know are one of the largest sections of restrooms on the property. So we took advantage of that, and then we can see the storm coming in. So we ducked into the Hall of Presidents and took advantage of the air conditioning and the dryness in there.
And a
And
long
when
show. It is a long show.
it is, and it's a good thing too, because it was really raining again at this point. I think that's when you were heading out of the park, Heidi, and we were there. We said, I'm just staying right here because it is really, really rainy out there. It still was raining some when we left, but not too bad. The kids decided they were in it for the long haul. The park wasn't closing until 11 p.m., and they decided they wanted to stay. I opted with my husband and a few others to take a break over at Outer Rim at the Contemporary. So we hopped on the monorail and went over there for a few beverages. And then we decided to head over to Territory Lounge at Wilderness Lodge. Heidi, you joined back up with us pretty late that night, I think it was.
It was. I felt the challenge to not be my old lady self and stay in the hotel. One of the members of the group, when we had left, we said, "We'll see you later this evening." And she was like, "Sure, we will." So my roommate was like, "We've got to get up and go." So we went and we didn't eat while we were in there and we hadn't eaten since it was 3:30, 4 o'clock. But we had it was relaxing in there. And I think they made another zero proof mocktail for me that kind of created, um, they do have good food in there, but I think it was all not exactly what we wanted for that time. And
And
then
where were
we
you at
headed
that point, Rachel?
So we decided, when we left the restrooms in that kind of breezeway area heading towards Adventureland, we kind of grouped there. And so my roommates, 3 other women I was traveling with, we decided, okay, let's try to get on Pirates. Pirates had been down earlier. And it was at a 15-20 minute wait at that point. It's like, okay, if this is the queue's inside, we've got a decent ride link. So let's try to wait this out there. From the walk from those restrooms to Pirates, we were in puddles. Our shoes were soaked. If you looked, I did post a picture to our stories that we just went with it. So we knew that we had things to do. And so we did that. After that point, some in our group wanted to see the new Country Bear show. I had already seen it. And I think slightly out of protest, I did not want to go see again. I do miss the original version of it very much so, but I wanted to go through the Emporium, look for some things for my children. So I took off with one of my roommates. We went through the Emporium. She was looking for some things for her kids too. And I was with the group that tried to get on Space Mountain earlier and it shut down. And as we were exiting the line, because it had been up and down all day long, we happened to hit the line right when it opened. So we had gotten in, we weren't waiting for a long time, then it shut down again. They gave us all passes to come back. It was a lightning lane pass, a multi-experience one. So we were going to meet up again at Space Mountain and try to get on it. So, but it was still down. So we just waited there for a while and then we decided to exit the park. We were staying at a deluxe resort. We wanted to go and take advantage of Epcot extra hours in the evening. And I had an individual lightning lane for Guardians. One of my very good friends was originally on the trip with us and she had been there for a couple of days and she unfortunately had a family emergency she had to go home and tend to. So we had planned a couple of our evenings together. We toured the park similarly and we had both had an individual lightning lane for Guardians. But so I went and did that. I told my roommate, sorry that I'm the only one that has this. So we went and did that. But then at that point, the park was starting to close. So we walked around a couple of things. We actually went to La Cava at one point. We just went up and did the takeout, which in that too, when La Cava first opened, it was impossible to get in for a long time. But they said, we have stand-up tables or you can just go and do a takeout. We decided to do a takeout. Then we went into Frozen. Luminous was about to start. Frozen said it was a 45-minute wait. So we just thought, well, let's go try it. We waited for 15 minutes. And after we got out, Luminous had just ended, and it was a mad dash of people running into the queue for Frozen. But at that point, it was only open for deluxe guests, so probably a lot of them were turned away. Then we decided to walk over to Ratatouille. Ratatouille did say that it had a 50-minute wait, and the queue was outside. They have a big outside area that zigzags, and so we thought, oh, it probably is a decent wait. We got lucky with Frozen. This one's probably a decent wait. So we decided to try the single rider line, which I had never done before. We were immediately placed into ride vehicles. So we went in, grabbed our 3D glasses, got placed in. I think we were just within like 3 of us got put in one load dump. The next one person got in the next load dump. So we did that. We kept checking the Guardians time. It kept being over an hour. We were going to try to do standby on that. We kept trying to get over to there, but we walked through World Showcase at night. It was pretty well empty. Then we went over and rode Soarin', walked right onto that. I know it's a big push as to what row you get. We got the middle row in the theater, but we got row 2. They were not loading row 3. That's how few guests that they were loading. So they're only loading the top 2 rows. And we got on that. By that point, it was getting, 10:30 at night. We only had about 30 more minutes left. We did not want to try Guardians. We kept trying to find food. Our 3:30 lunch had worn off by that point. I will say this, if you are doing these deluxe hours, eat beforehand. Almost everything shut down. I had a Mickey pretzel for dinner. I'm not complaining about my Mickey pretzel, but I wanted a little bit more for dinner. But that was what we had for that. So that was what the rest of our evening ended up being.
And I think it was around 10 o'clock, and Heidi and her roommate Jen decided to head back to the hotel. And my husband said to me, "Aren't we going back to the park tonight?" And I said, okay, well, sure. But we got down to the boat launch at Wilderness Lodge and we waited for over 10 minutes for a boat. And by that point, the fireworks were starting. And I said, I'm really sorry, but we will be walking ourselves into disaster if we do this. He knows, and we all know if you've been there during the fireworks, it is so crowded. So for us to try to enter the park and make it to our kids who were not watching fireworks, they were going to be they were on Tiana's. They were going back to Space Mountain and crisscrossing around the park. I said, I'm not going over there to just chase them around. So we ended up bailing on the plan to go back to Magic Kingdom, and I had gotten a notification on my phone as we were approaching the Wilderness Lodge lobby that Heidi's ride had just picked her up. So we just missed a lift back with Heidi to the resort, but we ended up ordering our own and went back to Art of Animation and just waited for the kids there because I just didn't have it in me at that point of the day to deal with the crowds if I didn't have a goal in mind. Uh, so
Yeah. Rachel and I have a horror story of trying to go against the fireworks crowd. We were there a couple years ago at Christmas, and they had just done the fireworks, and we were there for a Christmas party after. And we tried to walk down Main Street as everyone else was leaving. That was a very traumatic experience.
Yeah.
It was
I was
horrible.
So it kind of goes to show how bad it was because I was
Yeah.
there and you don't even recall that I was there because I was with someone else and got separated from you. And it was kind of like, okay, grab your partner and don't let them go because
Yeah.
it can be pretty bad.
It
And
is.
if
Yeah.
anybody has any trouble with crowds or claustrophobia, I mean, I've seen kids, that don't normally have trouble with that kind of thing just start crying because it gets overwhelming with
Mhm.
how the crowds are. And it's unfortunate, but it's a fact that a lot of times you'll have some adults out there who aren't the most kind and compassionate with that kind of thing, and they're just trying to get to where they want to go the fastest. So
Right.
I opted to not add into that craziness. I was fine with the kids doing rides and not getting caught up in the craziness. And I told them, you know how this works. Just stay back there, get on a ride at the time the park closes, and wait for it to clear out a little bit before you try to get down Main Street through the craziness. So that seemed to work well for them and they had a great night. I was kind of keeping up with it, looking in my Disney Experience app because I could see ride photos as they were loading. and they had a blast, so that worked well. And then of course that leads to Tuesday, and of course I wasn't up very early again because we were up early the day before and out late. So I made everybody get up in time to have breakfast at Art of Animation, and we used the Skyliner to get to Epcot, and we didn't get there until noon. But I know Rachel had an earlier morning. She powered through.
Yeah, we did. We decided we thought about taking advantage of the early hours, but we hit Frozen and Soarin' and Ratatouille the night before, so we were like, okay, we'll sleep in for 30 more minutes, and so we got there at park opening, official park opening, and we all actually we met up with some more people in our group that were either local or staying elsewhere, and we all had most of us had individual lightning lanes for Guardians that morning, so we went on that again. There were 5 of us that time, so that was nice. We got September, made a lot of the members of the group happy that we got that. And then we went over to the Land Pavilion and rode Living with the Land. We got a snack at that point because we did have reservations at noon, but we knew we were going to have a big lunch, so we just kind of wanted to get a little snack, a little fuel in us before that. We did go to the seas with Nemo and friends. We saw the baby manatee who was super cute. And he was just kind of swimming in circles. He would use one of his, little fins, arm. I don't know what they call them. He's a mammal, so he would swim like in one direction one way, and then use the other one and swim the other direction. And so he was really cute to watch for a few minutes. And then, and I know Missy in an earlier episode we had talked about that the manatees weren't there, so they were back,
They were
and
back.
the baby was in there, but we did that, and then we met up with you when you got to the park later at noon.
Right. So I arrived
Yeah.
at noon and we had reservations starting at noon for Geo 82. So Geo 82 is the new lounge in the Spaceship Earth Lounge area. It used to be used for private events, but it just recently this summer opened up as a regular option for guests to book. Now, you do have to be at least 21 years old to visit Geo 82. They do have some small plates, but the drinks are really the main attraction there, I think. And as I've mentioned before, I'm an old fashioned kind of girl, and they have a brown butter old fashioned on the menu that I was very eager to try. So, Heidi was there with us as well. Heidi was not at the same table as Rachel and I. We were kind of back to back with each other, but we had basically the same experience there, I think. It's a little bit difficult to find the restaurant, the lounge, because it is not really, there's not signage for it outside anywhere. So you'd have to enter what I consider to be the exit of the Project Tomorrow area from Spaceship Earth. If you go in through there, then you'll see the GO 82 sign, and there's a little hallway down there to check in through. So, like we always do when we travel with the group, we try to get there a little bit early, a couple minutes before our reservation time, and let them know that we do have multiple reservations, that we understand if we can't be seated together, but we would love to be close to each other if possible, depending on what they had available. So they were super accommodating. We did not expect to be close to each other for this reservation because it is such a small space. The table configurations really seem to be more for smaller tables. We had some reservations for 4, and they actually were able to combine and do 2 reservations for 6 for us, I think it was. We had 12 total. So I hadn't anticipated having the larger tables, but we did. So that was really nice. Um, I also had the tuna. Rachel did too. And Rachel, I know, had a couple drinks also. Do you want to tell us about those, Rachel?
Yeah, so okay, I am not a huge bourbon fan. I was actually taking pictures of what they had on display because my dad is, and so I was trying to entice him to come to Walt Disney World. But I had the strawberry and coconut right hand, and so they kind of broke down the menu as some of them are sipping drinks and some of them are more fun drinks, and so a right hand was the sipping one, and very much was it was. The way I described it when I had it, it almost had kind of a dairy type taste to it. I could not tell where the dairy was unless it was just the coconut in there, but kind of have a dairy flavor to it. And I also got the Electron. Somebody in our group who wasn't there at the time but had sent pictures to me from a previous trip to there had the Electron and was talking about how good it was. So I had the Electron. I enjoyed the Electron much more. That was not a sipping drink. That was just a fun cocktail. So I did enjoy that one more. That was really good and everything. And then somebody else in our group got the um, charcuterie board, and somebody else also got the flatbread. The flatbread looked really good. The charcuterie board, each of us got some of the cheese on there too. They had a truffle cheese that was delicious. I could have eaten that whole load of truffle cheese. That was really good. But the tuna was good too. It was very fresh, and I did enjoy that. So yeah, it was a great time. And one thing that I was surprised about, we were talking when we got sat, when Oga's first opened, you had a time limit because it was so popular that you could only be there for 45 minutes. And they were very, very strict on that. We did not have that. We didn't take up too much of the time. We were very respectful of their time, but we were not told of any time limit. So if there was one, we were not made aware of one.
What did you have there, Heidi?
They had 2 zero-proof mocktails on the menu, and neither of them really sounded great, so I asked them if they could make a zero proof margarita on the rocks. So they very kindly did that. And they added, I think, cinnamon to it. And then they lined half the glass in salt and half in sugar. So I could decide if I wanted a sweet or a more savory taste. And it was very good. And then I shared the charcuterie board as well with my roommate. And it was amazing. It was when we go over my food list later, that was probably one of the best charcuterie boards I've had on Disney property. The cheese was great. The accompaniments were great. They had a couple different kinds of bread. So it was really good. And I hadn't had breakfast, so I was really hungry at that point.
So I think their use of the space overall is excellent. It's fun entering up the spiraling staircase to get into there. When you first enter the waiting area upstairs, they give you the damp, like cool washcloths that had some type of lemon infused something. It was so refreshing. I could have just sat out there with washcloths for probably an hour because I found that to be very enjoyable. And it really just kind of just cleansed me out, like made me like, okay, I'm all refreshed now and I'm ready for this relaxing experience, which isn't really something that's customary in the middle of a theme park. So I thought that was really nice. The lounge area itself has windows, of course, that look out over that area of the park. In the distance, you can see where the World Showcase Lagoon is. They do have an option at Geo 82 to be able to book a special fireworks view package. So that is separate from what we did. Of course, that would be an evening thing. And I believe you'd be guaranteed one of the seats right along the window if you book that. Just be aware if you're not familiar with the layout of the park. Of course, you'll be able to see the higher fireworks in the distance, but this does not sit on World Showcase Lagoon. You will not see the projections and the rest of the show from Geo 82 that you would if you were right up front there somewhere like Rose and Crown in the UK pavilion. So it could definitely be a very enjoyable experience. It's just not right on the water there. But I understand why they're offering that, because one of my first thoughts when I heard about this was, oh, I wonder how much of the fireworks they can see. And we should try to get a nighttime reservation there to see what that's like. So I appreciate that they recognize that as well and offered something. So I think overall, it was a great experience. I would definitely go there again. I wouldn't classify it as a meal so much, even though the food that we did have was delicious. It wasn't really meal-sized portions. Definitely more of a lounge and relaxation type atmosphere than a restaurant. It's should not be mistaken with a restaurant. It truly is a lounge. In fact, when we left there, we went over to Connections because some people were hungry. And so some of us got a few other little things to eat and relax there, while the rest of the gang headed over to Guardians of the Galaxy because we had some single passes to use there. And then we basically did Rachel's morning. So we were kind of reversed of what she did. Then we headed over to ride Nemo and to see the manatees. Rachel had mentioned during our time at Geo 82 that she had seen the baby, and I said, oh, I want to do that. So we went over too, and the baby manatee was not quite as entertaining for us. It was kind of just up there, like with its backside turned to us the whole time. I don't know if it was almost feeding time. Like, so you could see if you look up towards the top of the tank, there's like an opening there. I don't know if it was waiting to eat or what was happening, but it was very otherwise entertained by not us. So, but we did get to see it. It came around a bit, but it was cute. And we also headed over to Soren and Living with the Land. No wait really for either of those. Soren, you get to sectioned off and okay, you go here, you go there. Like you got a couple minute of a wait there, but it wasn't anything long by any means. And as we exited the land pavilion, a few of us had vibrating phones and took a look down and saw that Disney had just sent out a notification through My Disney Experience that if you are an annual pass holder and in the park, head to Test Track because you can get a ride on it. So we had all attempted to get the virtual queue for Test Track that day, and none of us got it. And we are all pretty experienced with Disney rides and the virtual queue system. I don't think I've ever not gotten a virtual queue before that day. I'm not really certain at this point that they actually gave them out because they had it opened up for all annual pass holders. So we immediately headed that way, and we just needed to show the notification on our phone to let them know that we were pass holders and had been invited to this special preview, and they let us enter the queue and ride the ride. So that was pretty exciting to see. It did seem to pause a few times when we were in line, and they kept warning that it can close at any time over their loudspeaker there, but we did successfully ride. And I think it's hard to ever beat anything that's your first Disney experience. So when I went on Test Track for the first time, it was the original version of Test Track. So I don't know if I'll ever like one as much as I think I liked that. After we got home, the kids actually sat and found an old YouTube video of somebody riding Test Track to see what the original was like because they were so little. I think one of them never made it on it and the other barely remembered it. But I absolutely like this better than the more recent version of it. So I think it really was an improvement, and I'm glad we were able to, even though we failed with our plan to try to see Starlight this summer, we did succeed with riding Test Track. So I was very happy about that. And then we made our way around World Showcase and went to Via Napoli for some dinner. So wow, we do a lot of eating, I guess, when we travel. There are other things in between. It takes time to walk from one place to another, but
Well, that's what I
but we
said.
had a great dinner.
Said my report is generally moving from a hotel to somewhere to eat, back to rest, back to eat. But it takes, like you said, it takes a long time to get everywhere.
It's true, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we enjoy it, and that's what it's there for. So all of us were together for dinner, so that was nice. I had the pizza, and inspired by Rachel, I ordered the sangria flight,
What, that
and
was a
that
good inspiration.
it was. I can always count on her. And I thought that was delicious. So we had a really nice dinner. We weren't rushed. We took our time and visited, and it was a nice way to kind of close things out because most of us were heading home the next day. And we finished our meal just when Luminations was starting, or Luminous was starting. So see what I still just pretend Illuminations is out there, I guess, in my mind. Just as Luminous was starting, we were exiting the restaurant. So we had a pretty nice view from Italy there, being able to look out over the World Showcase Lagoon and see the fireworks in that show there. So I think that was a pretty ideal closing to our group get together this summer. Um, Anybody else have anything to add about the Epcot day?
No, I actually left and went over to Hollywood Studios. It was supposed to rain all day, remember? Heidi
Yes,
texted us
yes.
that morning and said um, that Jim Cantor said, "Do not go to Disney World on
That's
this day."
right. Oh, that's right. He
Yeah,
did. It was Jim Cantori says this is not a day for Disney theme
yeah.
parks. And where are
So
we
it
going? Disney theme
turned
parks.
out to be a day for Disney. We did not get rained on at
Mhm.
all that day. We missed the rain again. When we were at dinner, but so we went over to Hollywood Studios. It was pretty. It was very overcast that morning, so we decided to walk. Had a nice walk around Boardwalk to get over there. Then when we got to Hollywood Studios, it was the clouds opened up and it got hot fast. So we wanted to go on Tower of Terror. The line was not that long, but it broke down when we were in line. They were making the announcements. And so when they start making those announcements, you know that it could be a while for it to come back up. So we got out of line. We did catch the villain show. We had better luck than you did. We only had to go through one cycle because we showed up at the time it was starting for one show and they're like, you can't get in. So we went to the next one.
Mhm.
But we went over to Animation Courtyard, check out some of the cool kid summer things they had there. Clarabelle was out coloring with kids at a table. And so we all got our picture with Clarabelle. A leaf had fallen. Donald was trying to put it back on the tree and got Goofy's help to throw it back over towards the tree. Where the Disney Junior dance party is, that whole place is open during the summer. It's just an open door policy. Both doors are open. They had the characters out, Fancy Nancy, Vampirina, Mickey, Timon. They were all out with a DJ dancing. So us adults without children went in and danced too. I flossed with Vampirina, and but we just wanted to check it out, check out some of the things that they were offering for Cool Kid Summer, and I really did like that. There were a lot of kids in there. It was a great way for them to get the wiggles out and air conditioning while parents watched, see some characters too. And so then we just, we stayed there for about 5 minutes checking it out. The DJ was great. And then we left from there and we wanted to get to Epcot before dinner. So we decided our original plan had been to go to Hollywood Studios for a while and then close out the night at the Magic Kingdom because it was open till 11 and I do love the Magic Kingdom at night. But when Misty brought up dinner plans and knowing it was going to be the last time that we really got to spend time together with all of us, we decided that we would axe that and just go back over to Epcot. So we try to get over there with enough time before dinner so I could go to Mitsukoshi. I love to go to Mitsukoshi, and I knew I could find something for my children there as a souvenir, which I did. But while we were there, Missy texted me. She said, "Are you in the park?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "You have to get over to Test Track now." So um, one of my roommates actually did get the virtual queue that morning, and it never got called. So she never got the notification that it was open to annual pass holders.
Oh, I hadn't
So
heard that.
yeah,
Okay.
so that was interesting, that she got it, it never got called, but she never got the notification, that you got. So we appreciated that text because we were able to then go over there and go on it. Otherwise we would have just, thought her group never got called for
Never
that.
got
So
called. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm glad that all worked out then. I
yeah,
hadn't realized
I
that.
am too.
Um, So concerning Cool Kid Summer, honestly, when I first saw it, advertised, I thought, well, this is a little silly. And seeing the event that I saw happening at Animal Kingdom, our first full day there, I also thought, well, this is a little silly. But after speaking with some parents who were there with kids, it really seems to be a hit for the young ones. So apparently, I am not the cool kid. I am too old to be the cool kid. And Cool Kid Summer is appropriate for those that it was geared towards. You mentioned the courtyard you were in there, where you saw that going on, and I just thought it would be worth mentioning that we did just have information released about an upcoming attraction there that is going to be going in the launch bay. We will and coming in 2026, Disney has told us that there's going to be a new animators attraction there in the Launch Bay building. So it seems like they're kind of reworking what's going on in that area. I know when we were at Hollywood Studios, that Disney Junior attraction was closed at the time. So it seems like we may be getting a bit of a revamp on that whole area there at Hollywood Studios in the coming year or so. So that's something to keep an eye out for, that we will certainly be catching up with here when we can. So for our last morning, we just slept in a bit and packed. We had to be out of the room by 11 o'clock. Our flight was a little before 5 p.m. So we decided to leave our luggage with Bell Services. If you are staying at a Disney Resort hotel, they will be happy to hold your luggage for you there on your arrival or departure day, or if you're switching between resorts. I mean, they really are fantastic with it. We always appreciate those cast members who are working there at Bell Services and encourage you to offer them a bit of gratuity if you're able, for the services that they're offering to you. They take good care of your luggage. But we decided to leave ours with them. I had a friend and her kids traveling along with me, who are flying with Southwest. So they were able to have their luggage checked in at Art of Animation and then sent their checked luggage directly to the airport, to the airline. So they didn't have to worry about that. And it did work well. This is something Disney used to do with many, many airlines years ago. It was a fabulous benefit. I think one of the best benefits of staying at one of the Disney resort hotels. I've missed it since it's been gone. I'm thrilled now that it's starting up again. Of course, it's not every airline. It's just Southwest trying it out right now, but it's a great option. She was a little nervous. She had air tags in her bags just to track them in case, but they all made it home. So that was nice. And I'm starting to sound like a broken record. We hopped on the Skyliner again. We just love that Skyliner. It's one of my favorite things at Disney World. We got on the Skyliner and we headed over to Riviera's quick service for a bit of a lunch and to visit there for a bit before heading back to Art of Animation to get ready to head home. So we were excited to see one of the character buses of characters was at our hotel. The characters were in the lobby when we returned. So that was kind of a nice farewell to be able to see Goofy and Donald interacting with some kids in the lobby and getting photos and kind of dancing around. It was a nice thing to see just before departing.
We must have just missed that. We, my roommate and I skylinered over to the Riviera for breakfast, and then we ran into you all as you were arriving, and I grabbed my chai tea latte at Le Petit Cafe upstairs, and then we headed back to pick up our bags into the airport. So very sad
Yep,
to
I
leave.
think you really must have just missed them.
Yeah.
So, because you had left Riviera shortly before we did, and they seem to have not been there very long when we arrived there. I don't know how long they stay when they're there, but I think it's a nice little bonus, a nice surprise. Especially during that busy time of day when a lot of people are arriving and waiting for their rooms, hoping their rooms are ready after their travel there. Kids can be a little bit tired, so it's just really a nice surprise to see the characters there interacting. So overall, I think that we had a great trip. It sometimes can be difficult when you're traveling with a group, but the groups that we're a part of really seem to be welcoming to all. And I love that we're able to travel together, but not together, because as you've all heard, as we've been discussing our travels, we all kind of had different itineraries, but we managed to meet up at certain times. And it really just goes to show there's something at Disney World for everyone, no matter your age or the type of thing that you enjoy doing. There's plenty to entertain you, there's plenty to eat, there's plenty to drink, and just a lot of fun time. So we appreciate you listening in on this today. It was a great trip, and I hope that we have many more to come.
For today's top five, we are talking about our top five favorite snacks at Walt Disney World. And we saved this one because we had Heidi on today because Heidi is my personal Disney World snack guru. She keeps me updated on what new snacks are there. So we thought this was appropriate for today. And of course, who doesn't love to snack their way around property? So, Heidi, will you start us out? What's your number five in your top five snacks?
My number 5 is the blueberry cream cheese mousse at Satuli Canteen in Animal Kingdom. It is beautiful, first of all. The presentation is gorgeous for a quick service restaurant. And then it's just so light and refreshing because it's always hot in Animal Kingdom. And so it's a chilled dessert. So that's my number 5.
All right, Missy, what do you have?
Clearly, Heidi's so much more sophisticated than me with her palate. My number five is the Mickey Premium Ice Cream Bar. I mean, you can't go wrong. It's great. What about you, Rachel?
So I said the Plaza ice cream sundae. If you when you walk by that area, it smells delicious. Anyways, they waft it out into the air for you to tempt you to come in. But 2 scoops of ice cream of your choice with hot fudge, whipped cream, and the best part is that it is in a freshly made waffle bowl. So that's definitely the best part for me. All right, Missy. Yeah, not Missy. We'll go back to Heidi. Heidi, what's your number four?
My number 4 is the cheeseburger spring rolls at the Spring Roll Cart in Magic Kingdom. It's located right next to the bridge to Adventureland. I'm a purist, and so I do not use the sauce with it. And these taste like the most wonderful, hot, fresh McDonald's cheeseburger, which sounds gross, but it's not. It's pickly and cheesy, and they're really good.
All
So
right, so
I
for
th
my
those are really polarizing. You either love them or hate them, and I am not a fan, but I have tried them before, and they are very popular. They do sell out, so if you wanna try them, um, you might need to stalk the cart to see when they have them there. Missy, what do you have?
my number four is a festival specific item, and I don't know if it really counts as a snack or not, but I'm pretty sure it's a snack. So during the Food and Wine Festival in the Odyssey building last November, I had peanut butter and jelly wings, which sounded bizarre to me, but I was starving. It was late at night, and that's what they had there. So I thought, well, it's wings. How bad can wings be as long as they're not too spicy? Because I don't typically like spicy things. These were the most delicious wings I think I've ever had, and I just want to go back for them. I'm like wanting to plan a trip for Food and Wine just so I can go back there and eat these wings. It kind of tasted like peanut chicken. If you've ever had like takeout
Mhm.
peanut chicken anywhere, I did not really get the jelly in it at all. It kind of like how they have the peanut butter and jelly milkshake at 50's prime time. I can heavily taste the peanut butter in there, but no fruity component to that. I think it's kind of the same. So yeah, I really love those peanut butter and jelly wings.
Me too.
So my number 4 is the Mickey pretzel, specifically with the good tub of plastic cheese that they serve it with. It's filling, it's nice to have, no matter what time of day it is for me. So I like to grab one of those, have a seat, and have a snack in between meals.
Actually, my number three. So I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves now because you could skip my number three because Mickey pretzel with the plastic cheese is my number three.
Well, my number 3 has pretzel in it, but it's the pretzel
Oh,
bread pudding from Summerfest in the Germany Pavilion at Epcot. And this it's wonderful. It's a little savory with the salt, but it's sweet, and they put a vanilla glaze over top of it with caramel. And a couple times the cast member has even made little Mickey ears over the pretzel, which is really cute. So I highly recommend.
Yeah. So my three is anything cheese related at the Food and Wine Festival. It always seems to be different every year, but with the Remy's fromage hunt, I love it. They used to have our charcuterie board for the Food and Wine Festival, and I missed that. I wish they'd bring that back. Those were always something that I would get multiple times on a trip. But I love the different cheese dishes that they have every year. I think those are really wonderful. So I can't give a specific one because they always seem to change, but anything that deals with the Remy's fromage.
Well, my number 2 is something I tried just on this trip, the prime rib sliders from Cruise Cup Lounge. And I'm going to classify those as a snack because they're technically just 2 dinner rolls with prime rib on them. So that should count. Yeah. So if you can't go to Yachtsman or you don't want to spend the time, that's a great alternative to have a little of their prime rib and their dinner roll.
they look delicious. I saw your photo of them, so I need to
Very
get
good.
myself there. My number two is over at Disney's Pop Century Resort, and it's the tie-dye cheesecake. This is something I've loved for years. I don't typically love cheesecake, but there's something about this that I really enjoy. Uh, for a while, they served it in those little circle plastic containers, and I wasn't a fan of that version. But since then, they brought back just a traditional, nice big hunk of cheesecake, and that made number two on my list.
So number two on my list is also festival specific, but the sushi donut at the Festival of the Arts is amazing. And it has salmon on top, shrimp on top, cucumber. I get them two at a time and eat them both. And it really is donut shaped, and it's so fresh and so good. So those are always on my list. If I go to the Festival of Arts, that is one thing that I pick up multiple of.
Those are things mostly things I would eat, but just the shape like a donut thing for me is like, just seems so odd. But if you love
It is
that,
though,
then
but there's
that's
no
great.
donut texture or anything like that too. It's just purely the shape.
And it's so pretty
All
too.
right,
It is very pretty.
on to the big
All
number
right.
one, Heidi. What is
All
it?
right. Number one, I'm going old school traditional. It's the Mickey or Minnie Rice Krispie treats, but specifically the ones that are from either the Main Street Confectionery or Goofy's Candy Company in Disney Springs. Because Disney Springs location, you can actually have yours custom made, hand dipped with like white chocolate, milk chocolate, dark chocolate, different toppings. And on this trip, I actually tried a new one to me at the confectionery that was peanut butter and chocolate. And they had peanut butter in the Rice Krispie treat, and then it was covered in chocolate, and then with the M&Ms. So I always buy those, kind of like Rachel with the sushi donut. I buy those two at a time, and I save one to take home and cure my Disney blues at the airport or on the airplane.
I brought one to you before. I don't remember, were
Yeah,
we cruising or something? And I was staying at Disney, and I went and got one for you because you weren't able to get there beforehand to get one.
sure did.
All right, Missy, what do you have for number one?
So my number one is a magic bar. Specifically, I enjoy the magic bars at Port Orleans Riverside the most. I don't know why they're different than the others, but they are. I know Wilderness Lodge often has them at a Roaring Fork, but they aren't quite as good to me as the ones at Port Orleans Riverside. If you're not familiar with them, they're like kind of a graham cracker, crusty bottom with melted chocolate chips. And I think they're butterscotch chips. And there's definitely coconut in there. And I don't normally eat coconut. Usually, the only time I'll consume coconut is if it's in liquid form in an adult beverage. But I love the magic bars at Port Orleans Riverside. It's not somewhere I frequent because it's not super easy to get to down there. But sometimes I'll go out of my way just to get the magic bar.
I've never had one of those, but that does sound really nice.
Great. Well, I guess we're staying at Port Orleans Riverside next
I
time.
guess so. So my number one is the Tropical Serenade from Aloha Isle. I cannot believe that Dole Whip did not make any of our list, but this is kind of
Not a
like a Dole Whip
fan.
float, which I think is the superior version of a Dole Whip. So a float has the soft serve and juice, but instead of pineapple flavors, you have pog juice. And if you're not familiar, that is passion fruit, orange, and guava juice. They serve that at several of the resorts. Ohana for breakfast is one that it's known for. And instead of the pineapple soft serve, it's a coconut soft serve. So it's kind of like a pina colada type when you mix it all together. And there is an upside down pineapple cake pop that goes on top of it. I remember seeing this for the first time for the 50th. I don't know if it was specific, but they named it for one of the characters at the Enchanted Tiki Room. But it stuck around on the menu, and I'm glad that it did because it is wonderful.
Yeah, it was on my
Typically, if
list
I'm
originally.
Okay. And we did
typically if
not
I'm
talk about this
getting Dole
beforehand.
Whip, when I get Dole Whip, it's usually at Pineapple and I at the Polynesian, and then I'll get the vanilla with the little side of the coconut rum to pour on top of it. Other than that, I'm not a Dole Whip fan.
Yeah, so I did actually go to Animal Kingdom on Wednesday for the sole purpose of getting the Dole Whip sangria. So I did other things too. I had a full day there by myself, but that was one of the things because I do love Dole Whip. So the Tropical Serenade is my favorite. All right, today's listener question is how early should I book my trip to Walt Disney World? And I think we'll have different answers on this one too. So, Missy, what do you think? How early do you typically start planning, or would you recommend that somebody start planning and booking their trip to Walt Disney World?
So if you know what you want and you know when you can go, I say book it as soon as you know what you want. Now, of course, you can't plan now for years from now. Typically, Disney will allow us to book through the next calendar year, depending on when in the year we are. So I think it was pretty well into this year by the time they released all of 2026. But there's really no harm in booking now if you know what you want, especially now that we're seeing some dynamic pricing at Disney World, meaning the rates could go up at any time. And that goes for both the room and the tickets. The deposit is 100% refundable up until 30 days before when your final payment is due. So if you have that $200 to put down, go ahead, get your trip locked in, and start planning.
Yeah, what about you, Heidi? What do you say?
I agree. As soon as they release the room rates, book, all the same reasons that you lock in your pricing, you'll have the greatest availability. And then if there are discounts offered later, you can always apply those if they apply to your specific room category and resort. So yeah, book early, book often,
Oh,
as many
yes.
trips as you can take.
Take the trip.
Take the
Yeah,
trip.
so I say at least 6 months. A long time ago, dining was booked 6 months out in advance, so you always had people booking at that time too. Of course, having last-minute trips booked is always fun as well because of that, but if you haven't been before or don't go frequently, I think 6 months gives you enough time to kind of take in everything that you need to plan appropriately for a trip. But I will say too, if there is a specific room type that you want, I'm thinking like the Garden Cottage Suite at Boardwalk. If you don't know what those are, look those up. That's a really neat rooms. I think if you want one of those rooms, you need to book as soon as availability is open. So that was this week's question, listener question. If you have your own question that you would like to submit, please feel free to email us at podcast@storybookdestinations.com or at disneylife@storybookdestinations.com. That again is podcast@storybookdestinations.com or at disneylife@storybookdestinations.com. We also invite you to join us over on our socials. We have a Facebook group called A Disney Life, so you can get on Facebook and search for A Disney Life and join our group there. We also are on Instagram. Our IG handle is A Disney Life Pod. You're welcome to find us over there as well. We also post our shorts from our episodes on Instagram, and we have a TikTok too that those are on, as well as our YouTube channel. So this week's tip of the week deals with Walt Disney World packages and room-only reservations. Walt Disney World offers discounts for almost every time of the year. A discount will come out. So if you are booking a package before discounts are available, if you wanted to go ahead and jump in on booking as soon as it first opens, go ahead and book that package, but book at a price that you are comfortable with paying. Do not rely on discounts to become available and that your particular package will lower in price because that is not a guarantee that will happen. So book at a price that you are comfortable with paying. If discounts come out at a later time, those can be applied retroactively. So there's no harm in going ahead and getting that package booked now. Thank you so much for joining us on a Disney Live podcast. And we really want to thank our special guest, Heidi. Heidi is a joy to have as a friend and to travel with. And we just love her so much. And so thank you, Heidi, so much.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
And again, please join us over on our socials. Find us on Facebook at A Disney Life and on our Facebook group and Instagram at Disney Life Pod as well. That's all that we have for today. So thank you. See you soon.